Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. Onions. Everybody likes onions. I particularly like green onions in my salad. I like onions, particularly the red onions or Vidalia onions on my hamburgers. And there's, I guess, a few people who like onions on their Knoxworth, Bratwurst, and, of course, hot dogs. So, very important vegetable. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate it because we get it all the time. We have basically a year-round supply of some type of onion simply because they're good to store or they're easy to grow or easier to import. But you name it, we can have it basically 12 months of the year. Onions, basically you're looking at a root depth of at least 1.5 to 3 feet. So that means you're going to have decent soil for good onions. Now, obviously, some onions require less depth. I think maybe the green onions would probably be fine in shallower depths. You need at least 5 hours of full sun per day, no less. You want to have a leaf 6 to 18 inches apart because each one is going to basically be that big. Frost tolerance, well, there may be a light frost. pH soil is about average soils for here in Niagara, between 6 and 7.5 for onions, and we're generally about 6.5 to 6.75. In the spring, you can plant them about 2 weeks after the last expected frost, seeds just after the last frost, okay? Planting in the fall, you want to do a second crop, let's say, 8 weeks after the spring planting, you can actually plant fall scallions. That means the bulblets, and you're going to get, of course, enough time in there to actually develop some nice plants. Planting depth for sets is about 1 inch. For seeds, 1/4 to 1/2 inch. Spacings in the rows, you can do 2 to 3 inches. And the spacing of the plants in beds, bulbs 3 to 5 inches, bunching 2 to 3 inches. The best soil temperatures for germination, now this is for seed, is 50 degrees to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. In other words, very wide range. The best growing temperatures for just growing your onions is 65 to 75. We're well above that lately, and this has been a very dry summer. Best air temperatures for growing, daytime is 60 to 85, but the nighttime it likes 55 to 60 degrees, and we're talking Fahrenheit here, okay? Germinating seed, 4 to 12 days. Weeks transplanting, if you're going to do them by seed, you have to move them around. About 4 to 8. Keep the seedling tops trimmed to 1/2 to 1 inch until a week before planting outdoors, okay? And that's if you're seeding them in the house, probably for spring. Or even, hey, you could do that with air conditioning. Yeah, okay. Even in the summer, later on for the fall planting. There are other containers varieties you can plant in containers for onions. The container has to be at least 10 to 12 inches deep, and the bigger, the better. Water requirements. Onions need at least 1 inch of water every week from rain or by watering. Especially important when bulbs are enlarged. Okay, in other words, the bigger the bulbs, and you want them to things, you better make sure they don't go drought-wise. Otherwise, you're not going to size up your onions. And I've always found that it has tendency to make them hotter, okay, if there is such a thing. And I like my onions a little sweeter, so forget it, okay? Don't forget to keep them watered. stop watering when tops fall or ripening may be delayed. Okay, so don't do that. Feeding is important. Lots of organic matter. The onions, then you can see them growing up in the Holland Marsh. They love the organic soil. So what you do is a general purpose fertilizer in the spring. Give the onions a supplemental light feeding as a side dressing or a foliar spray throughout the growing season. The important times to give onions side dressing are 3 weeks after setting them out, when the tops are 6 to 8 inches tall, and when the bulbs start to swell. Spray the onions with liquid seaweed or any of the organic fertilizers about 2 to 3 times during the growing season. Damage and things that go after your onions. I think this is probably what stops people from growing, because there is so many different things. The most common one is onion maggot. And these guys will burrow in and destroy the lower part of the onion stem near the bulb. They're white maggots. They're about, maybe a third of an inch long. No legs, of course. And they just do so much damage. So don't plant the onions too close together. And don't plant them in rows, because what happens is it makes it easier for the maggots to move from one bulblet to the next. If you get ragged holes in the leaves, it's usually slugs. And hand picking is still going to be the best in the early morning. But get out there early and be aware. You can set up a barrier of hardware cloth, ashes, sand, or some other material like that denies the slugs entry to the bulbs. Problem is, most of the time you're going to disturb it, either when you weed or cultivate, so you're going to have to do some work here. So it's not one thing, it's a combination of things to protect it against the slugs. Whitened withering foliage, that's thrips. Those are a little insect, you're probably not going to see them. And the green tops are going to have little streaks, little white lines. They may only be a 32nd of an inch long, but there'll be a lot of them. And there may be some disshaping of the leaves. It doesn't happen a lot, but I've seen it once or twice where the thrips were so bad that the tops were misshapen. Sudden wilting of plants, you got white grubs. Boy, do we have white grubs. That means, of course, the Japanese beetles, the European chafers, the May June bugs, etc. You can try nematodes in here, but let's be honest, it's going to take a long time to get them established. So probably you're going to be looking at moving them out of that area if you do have grubs. Wilting or poor development of the plants, wireworms. These guys are a real pain. Let's put it this way. They are hard to kill. The best control is to trap wireworms with pieces of potato speared on ends of sticks. And so you can try that as well. And they'll attack the piece of potato. And of course, then you get rid of that. Botrytis rot, brown neck, soft, right around the neck of the onion. You want to make sure you remove the plants and that are infected. Make sure they're gone for sure as fast as possible. You're going to have to probably look at these every day. Often the mold is gray to brown and it develops on the surface of the bulb, so take a look. Dampening off, you're going to have that one only if you're doing them indoors, and there is lots of organic ones. I think zest of lemon and insecticidal soap. For some reason or other, that comes to mind as being something you spray on the surface of the soil to control the little insects like fungus gnats that, of course, spread the dampening off. And don't overwater and let the surface dry. A good air movement through there, so a fan will also help as well. There's downy mildew going after it. After the leaves are 6 inches long, that is when the symptoms will probably start to show. So those are the ones that you really want to get after. Remember, for storage, onions in a net bag in a cool, dark place with a temperature of about 35 degrees Fahrenheit will keep for at least a month. Long-term storage method, canned, dried, pickled onions will keep for up to 12 months. No, not my way. I just go buy some more. And, of course, you want to get a decent yield. So a 25-foot row will produce about 15 to 20 pounds. And so not bad. I mean, how many people really need more than 15 to 20 pounds? You harvest them once the scallions are bulbs, about 1/4 to 5/8 of an inch in diameter. That's about right. The bulbs for pickling or boiling are about 1.5 inches in diameter. For storage, harvest, the tops fall over and turn brown, and cure before harvesting. That means hanging and storing, etc., and to harden off the onions. And make sure you clean the hard, well-shaped globes with dry, papery skins. That's what you're looking for. And that's something you can do all throughout as you pick your onions. Few tips on onions. It's a good idea, and it's easy enough to do. The other thing I like to do with onions is grow them under the soft white Rimet cloth as well. And same thing with carrots, radishes, and a few other things. Has a tendency to keep the bugs out and makes it a little easier to control them. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. This is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.